Today we're going to make a fish tank. We're going to make everything but the fish today. We'll make our fish in the next assignment. So we're going to actually make this in two pieces. So to get started, I want you to draw a line that goes on the inside of your paper. Just really close to the edge. Not a real far away line. That's because we're going to cut this out and glue it onto another sheet of paper once it's dry. All right, so we need to think about all the things we might see in a fish tank. Usually there's rocks at the bottom. There might be some coral, plants. There might even be like a little statue. I know in my fish tank we have a little tiki god and a plant. And then there's some other mechanical things like aerators and bubblers and things like that. But I'm not going to draw all of those because they're really just not that cool. We want to stick with the fun stuff. So we're going to start at the bottom with coral. So coral is a living organism that grows in the water, but usually when you put it in your fish tank, it is no longer alive. I always thought coral was really cool. But coral kind of looks like a plant. And there's lots of different kinds of coral. So I'm just kind of making up a shape. So there's a piece of coral, and I think I'm going to draw a few more pieces that are around it. And this one's going to be behind this one. So I won't be able to see all of it. And I'll put another piece over here. And I'll erase that little spot there. All right, so there's my coral. And on this side, I think I want to draw some seaweed or some tall grasses. I'll go with some tall grasses because those will be easier. I'm going to go way up. My fish, whose name is Dottie, is a goldfish that we've had for a very long time. And she likes to hide in different things. So I'm just making a curve with a little V line like that. That will be my plants. And actually I'll draw a line right up the middle of that one, down that one, bam, and bam. All right, now I have some nice sea plants, some coral, and I think right here I'm going to make my fish's little tiki god. So I'm going to make it kind of like, I think I'll make it a little bit like Squidward's house. All right, cool. And I think I'll draw some bubbles to fill up the rest of my space. I want a variety of sizes of bubbles. So I have some big ones, some medium ones, and some very small ones. All right. Now I've filled my page, so I have plenty to color in. And when you color, I want you to think about texture. So a lot of times coral is pink, and in order to get texture, I'm going to use 3 colors, and instead of just coloring them in a normal way, I'm going to kind of fill them in with kind of scribbly lines. Now, if this is too difficult for you, you can go ahead and just color them in a normal way. But I want you to maybe try doing this, but it's a little harder to stay in the lines. And I'm going to make them all the same, so I'm just going to go in this whole space with some scribbly lines. So this is like my coral patch down here. Oops. I actually went outside of my coral patch a little bit. That's okay. This is really just going to be our background for our fish. Alright, now I'm going to take another color and do the same thing. But it's the same kind of color. Because I really do need to fill it in. Because the last thing we're going to do is paint over this with some blue watercolor paint. And the blue watercolor paint won't stick to the crayon, but it will fill in all the white spaces. So I need to be careful not to get too much white left in my coral. All right, one more color. So this was red, violet, red. This is red, violet. So see how it's really getting a pretty nice texture to it. Make sure I get it into all of those spaces. Using 3 different colors that are the same, from the same color family, also makes it look more realistic because it looks like shadows. Alright, so there's my coral. Nice texture. Now for my seagrasses, I'm going to use lots of different greens. So I have blue green, oops, regular green, yellow green, and green yellow to do in my seagrass. I could even add, no, I don't think I could use blue. Let me see what I have here. Cerulean might be okay. That's just regular blue. That's indigo, so this must be cerulean. So I have a whole family of colors to use. So I'll start with my lightest color. For this one, I don't want texture that goes scribbly. I want texture that goes the way a leaf would grow. And that's diagonal lines that go up from the middle. So I'm starting with my lightest color. Now if I was actually painting, I would do the opposite. I would start with my darkest color and put the lightest on last. But that's when I paint with my acrylic paints. With watercolor you have to do it this way too, because it shows through. You can't put light colors over dark colors. With watercolors, you just have to leave them light. So every type of thing you use has a little bit of a different trick to it, but it gets the same look when it's done. Alright, a little regular green. So this is my big main leaf, so I really want to make that one look good. There's my background leaves. If I want sharper lines, I can actually use this back end of my crayon too. Makes more kind of like skinny lines until I wear it down. I don't want those to look zigzaggy. There we go. And blue-green. I think that'll be enough when I get there. So I'm going to get some of that in there. I use it more on the edges of each leaf to make it more of a shadow. Because the darker colors give us that shadow. Get them all? Yep. All right. Now I am ready for the tiki head. And I'm going to use gray and black for my tiki head. So I'm going to outline them with black first. Tiki head's pretty easy. You make kind of a rectangle that flares out. You make this little nose eyebrow line here, 2 circle eyes, and a soft rectangle mouth. And I'll go around them too. Oops, skip. Go down. And I don't need to do the bottom because that's where it's getting cut off. And I'm just going to fill it with gray because these are actually real idols that were made in a place called Easter Island. And they're on the hillside that faces the ocean. So when you show up at Easter Island, you see these figures looking out at the ocean. And no one really knows exactly why they were made, but they're big. And I just saw this thing not too long ago. They're actually full figures, but they're buried in the ground so you can't see their bodies. But they have bodies too. But mostly you see the head. That's what keeps them into the ground. If there wasn't a body or something, they wouldn't stand up. They would fall over. They've been standing for a very long time. So that's Easter Island, which is just coincidentally a holiday we just had, Easter. And I don't think Easter Island has anything to do with the holiday of Easter. All right, there's my tiki head, or my Easter Island head. And now I'm just going to do some bubbles. Since I'm going to paint this blue, I'll take my white crayon and circle my bubbles. So I'm just going around the outside, the circle. And I know it's hard to see white on white paper. So one thing you can do is kind of look at it at an angle, and you can see if you got them all. You can see it shining a little bit. Or you might even be able to touch it. I think I got all of them. No, it looks like I missed that one. Can't tell. It is tricky. All right, and then I'm just going to put a curve line. I better start in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like a little C line to give it that kind of like bubble shine in the middle. All right, now I'm ready to paint. So I'm just going to take blue paint and paint over everything. So I'll get up my watercolors and my water. Get all my crayons picked up and out of the way. And you just want to do a light coat of blue. You don't want to go crazy. And make sure you rinse your brush out. And if you want to, you could even mix up some watery blue on top. So I had some mixed up already from something else I had done. So I'm just going to get that wet. But you can take your blue, put it on the top of your tray, add some water to it. Actually, that might have been a purple. Well, I'll add more blue to it. Get it really watery. All right, now I'm ready to paint. So watch what happens when I go over that grass, or those plants. Oops, I got some oil pastel in there. It won't stick to it. Same with my little bubbles. Now the blue will just go and fill in all those empty spaces. That's why but you do have to make sure it's watery. If it's too thick, it will cover up a little bit. See how my bubbles are showing now? Get a little more blue in there, mix it up. Better. See, it hardly sticks to my tiki at all. Now it's okay if you go off the page. Remember, we're gonna cut that out, but make sure it goes all the way to the edge. Now it's sticking a little more to my coral because I didn't put as thick of a coat of crayon down. I'm almost done. this part, don't make this part take a long time. Just a light coat of watery blue to make it look like water. Isn't that funny? We always make water blue, but it's clear. But we use the blue to show that there's something there. All right, so there's my fish tank, all ready for a fish. We'll work on the fish next week. Oh, but I'm going to go ahead and show you the next step. We might not get to it in one class, but I'm going to move on. So I'm going to rip that out, and I'm going to pick out a piece of my colorful paper, and I think I'll use red. And I'm going to cut off this edge. So I'm going to get out my scissors. And I'm going to carefully cut that edge off. Now, if your paper is really saggy, you won't be able to cut it till it's dry. But if it's just a little saggy, it should cut okay. But take your time, don't tear it. Try to cut right on that line you drew. So we're going to set this on the other color paper. So it looks like how a fish tank has usually like a black base and sides and top edge to hold all the glass together. Now my fish tank is a cylinder. That means it's round and there's nothing on the top edge, but there is a black cover on it because we actually had a fish jump out of a fish bowl once, and that's when we started buying fish tanks with covers. Luckily we caught it in time, so we were able to scoop it up and get it back into the fish tank. I don't know, I think it wanted to come and eat dinner with us or something. I did not know fish would jump out of the tank. Alright, now I'm going to put some dots of glue around the edge. And I'll make a little X across the center like that. But just little dots. See how fast I glued? I didn't pour it on. And never hold your bottle up in the air and drizzle it on. Just go right to it and dot it. Close your cap so it doesn't dry out. If you only have a glue stick, then use your glue stick. I just like this glue better. It seems to hold better. Alright. Now my fish tank is looking very professional, like it should be in an art gallery because it has a nice mat around the edge. That's this paper frame. And it's ready for its fish, which we'll be doing next time.